Matthews.
Awesome.
Got some Matthews.
So, Pineville.
Oh, okay.
Cornelius or
Pineville.
Davidson? Okay, awesome.
A little bit everywhere.
Mooresville. Killing it. Man, we got people from all around the city. So, the reason why I asked is because you have around you people that live in all different areas of this part of Charlotte. Yeah. So, obviously, when I meet people, I say, hey, I'm from Charlotte, because that's the city that people knew. But in reality, I'm from Huntersville. That's where I grew up. And right now, I live in Concord. So I'm from Charlotte, but I have like 3 different things that I have association to. So why that's important is because every single one of us have different elections. They have different interests, different people that are living in those areas that need their interests served in the best way possible. So that's what we're going to do. Is as Turning Point Faith, we're going to engage those communities, not just Charlotte. We're not just going to, try and engage the city of Charlotte, but every single area around it as well. So
first, we just want to share a little bit about ourselves. So you want to go first?
For sure. Yeah. So like I said, my name is David Price. I am on staff here at Freedom House. I get to oversee worship for this campus. It's a ton of fun. I also get to work with our youth up at Lake Norman, which, shameless plug, by the way, if you have a student or are a student, we're going to be at our Lake Norman campus tonight warring for the tribal taco. They will know what that means. So I get to do that. I've been at Freedom House for like 10 years or so. So I love this church. I love this community, and I'm super excited to get to press in a little bit more into this political stuff. My interest in politics got spurred on when I was in an AP Gov class in high school. And this was really interesting, but when first day of class, they made us take a test. It was a political compass test on where, right to left, where we sat, or like where our beliefs were. And then our teacher made us sit in that order.
Right to left.
And so if you tested further right on the spectrum, you sat at the right of the classroom, and then so on and so forth. So needless to say, it made for some interesting class conversations, just upright knowing where everyone was at.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun with that. I learned a lot. But what I really learned was that it's super important to engage in politics. Politics is not just for those that are on Capitol Hill. It's not just for those that are in your county court offices or the mayor's building or whatever. Politics is for the people. And for so long, we have let politics be for a certain group of people. Yeah. We have let it be secluded to a certain group of people. And so we want to take that back into our hands.
Yeah, so cool. Quick little information about me. So I've been at Freedom House about 4 or 5 years now. On staff, loving it. Fun tidbit about when he was talking about the class lineup. So I was in the same AP Gov class. We actually met in middle school. Story for another time. But we were both in the AP Gov class in different classes, but had the same teacher. And I actually, this is my senior year of high school, I was on the complete left of the classroom. So definitely been a full kind of 180 since then, but definitely was cool kind of seeing we both were in the class, had very different perspectives and experiences. And actually for me, that class kind of also really got me interested in politics and just the government. And actually, after that class, I switched my major to political science. So I was actually going to UNC Chapel Hill studying political science and then felt called to ministry. So I was like, oh, well, church and politics don't really mix. So I guess that was just a different thing that I'm not involved in anymore. So now I'm just going to go full force into ministry. And then, 2020 hit and we kind of realized, okay, politics is now involving itself in church and involving itself in ministry. And so for me, it felt like kind of a full circle of, okay, no, this was meant to happen the whole time, and this was honestly part of God's plan to mesh the two together in a way that keeps Christ and Jesus the center of politics and the center of our government, and not letting politics become the center and the government become the center of everything we do.
Right.
So
for sure. So that's a little bit about us. We'd love to talk more about our stories and kind of what we've been able to experience over this past year, past 2 years, honestly, and talk more about that. But what we're going to do is at the end of all of this, we have a little bit of an agenda to go through. We want to talk about just some of the specifics, what it's going to mean for you to be involved in this. We're going to have a Q&A. So I'm not expecting a ton of questions, but if you do have a question, we'd love to be able to answer it. Try to make it more of a general question that maybe everyone could benefit from. And if you have any like more personal stuff, I'd be happy, but Jordan or I would be happy to talk about that afterwards. But if you have any like big questions, general stuff, we can talk about that at the end before we close. But first and foremost, what I want to do, and we should have done already, is pray. We're at a church,
That's
amen,
great.
right?
Yes.
Awesome. So let's pray.
Yeah.
Jesus, we love you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to get together. God, I pray that this would be the beginning of something fresh, God, that this would be the beginning of something new, that we wouldn't just get involved in politics for the sake of getting our candidate elected or for the sake of bragging rights or for anything like that, God, but it is so that we can press your church forward and press your kingdom forward, God. We want to see America return to its first love of loving you, Jesus. God, help us to pass policies and vote people into office that are going to pass policies that are biblical, God, that are founded in Bible-based principles, God, not just another tax write-off, although we love those things, God, not just financial benefits, God, but benefits that are going to make you want to sit in the throne above America, God. Because I know when I read the Old Testament and when Israel stepped out from under your covering, when they would pass laws that were against you or when they would do things that were against you, God, that you would take your hand away from them. And God, I don't want that to happen to America. This country has done too much good and has too much potential for that to happen. So God, let this be a revival, God, that we can start this again and we can start something fresh. So we love you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Awesome. So first, we're going to talk about a little bit of vision. What is Turning Point Faith, and like what is this whole thing about? So, Turning Point Faith is on a mission to activate the faith community to be civically engaged like never before. So, by empowering pastors and equipping their congregations to take action, we're going to be able to make a true impact in this city and in the nation. So, obviously, we're going to be engaging in election stuff. When 2022 comes around, we have midterms. When 2024 comes around, ultimately, and we have our presidential election, obviously we're going to be involved in those things because those are very important for the sake of our country. But we're not just going to be a presidential 2024 every 4 years voting group. We're going to be engaged every single day, every single week, every single month, every single election cycle, every single school board meeting, whatever it takes. We're going to be engaged in that because if we only focus on, every 4 years there's a presidential election. If we only focus on that, the country gets to go to crap in the other 4 years, right? Like anything can happen. It's anyone's game. We've already seen like this past election with 2020, we had a whole ton of stuff go blue, right? But even within the past year, we have seen such a dramatic shift of people wanting to go lean more conservative, lean more towards the right. We saw that with the Virginia governor's election. We saw that with the New Jersey State Senate election. I don't know if you heard about that, but some truck driver named Edward Durr, who had no business being in politics. Yeah, you guys heard about that. Had no business being in politics. Ran and then beat out the incumbent state senator who'd been there for like 20 years. Yeah. Like, that's wild. But that's because people want conservative values, and sometimes they just don't know it. And so we are going to empower them, and we're going to teach them what it means to have conservative biblical values, and we're going to fight for it. So,
yeah, something that really just stood out to me what you were just talking about is the presidential versus general elections, because I think it's really easy to focus on every 4 years, the president, it's the one you see everywhere, it's the one you know, but something I was talking to someone about the other day with local elections is those are the ones that you actually, like, it's very few people actually get to meet and get to know the president.
Right.
It's very small fraction.
Right.
Whereas the local and general elections, these are the people that are our neighbors. These are the people that are in our church. We have multiple people in our church running for Congress
yep.
and mayor and county commissioner. Those are the people that you actually get to sit down and talk to and get to know and get to really see their values. And they get to know you and your needs and the needs of our city way better than a president or even, the mayor.
City councilor, county commissioners,
any
all that
state
kind of stuff.
thing.
Yeah,
So,
right.
And those are the ones that we're least involved in. So we're really going to be putting an emphasis on that. And so
Right.
what that'll look like at Freedom House is we'll, one, be doing monthly Freedom Nights. So we already have speakers lined up for 2022. We have Charlie Kirk coming back. We've got Candace Owens coming back. We've got Mark Robinson coming here. We'll be releasing those dates all soon, but we're really focused on having not just, obviously, like Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens, they're great big names. But like I just said, even they don't necessarily know the specific needs and challenges of our city and our local towns. So we're going to be having people like Mark Robinson and even local city commissioners, county commissioners,
Right. Yep.
local people that are running for, like I know for the Lake Norman area, we have 2 members of our church that are running there. And we're going to be really having them coming in and build those relationships so they, one, can know how to better serve our cities, serve our towns, and really get us involved. So we'll be doing those each month. And that'll be one of the main 2 ways each month that you can really get connected. We have that, and then we'll have outreach. So that'll consist of things like going to school board meetings, going to
school board meetings.
I said school board meetings.
I know. I was just re-emphasizing that for all of y'all.
Yeah, yes, going to school board meetings.
Who here has been to a school board meeting? Okay, so we need to do better. Because we'll
help you do better.
And we'll help you do better. That's not to shame anyone. But I'm saying if this crew rolled up to any one of the school board meetings all together, like, it would be a lot.
Double the
It would be
amount
a
of
lot
people at the
different. Let me
school
just
board
say that.
meeting.
It would be a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, typically, like, I know you've been to one. It's sometimes like, 20, 30 people, not even at some of the meetings. And so, and a lot of the issues, like, that's where they're talking about this stuff. I mean, even with the city council, they're the ones, I don't know if you saw us in the news about the mask mandates, but our local county commissioners are the ones that voted for that to include religious organizations in the mask mandate. So it's all of this stuff that's local that I know some like local elections, we were looking at the city elections that just happened in November in the city of Concord. Some of those county commissioners that vote for mask mandates and vote for these things that affect us, the vote is a difference of maybe 30 to 40 people.
Yeah. Or they run unopposed, and that in and of itself is not good. So we have to do a better job of getting people to vote and training people up and raising people up who are going to run against those people. So, like, in my opinion, the mayor of Concord is Bill Douche is a great guy, but he's unaffiliated, so and he won't talk about like where his policies are or anything like that because he wants it to be like that. But the fact that only one person ran blows my mind. Like Concord's
takes out democracy.
Concord, yeah, you only get to vote for one person unless you're writing someone in. So, like stuff like that, we need to have more people that are confident, that are Christian, that love Jesus, and that are willing to step up and fight for their community. Concord's huge. I don't know if you've driven through it, but it takes like 7 hours to drive from one end of Concord to the other. Not to mention all the gas stops you might need on the way. So, a couple facts I want to just quickly share. So, this is going to blow your mind, but it's true, and I think it proves the point of why we need an organization like this, is 88% of Congress identifies as Christian. Now, I don't know about you, but based on some of the laws that get passed by Congress, I don't know if I believe that. And so what we want to do is we want to vote for people, and we want to rally around people that are going to actually vote their beliefs and actually vote for Christian values. I'll be honest, I would rather have someone in office that is like as left as Lenin but believes it and votes that way than a whole ton of people who say they're Republicans while they're campaigning and then get up there and basically just like fill a seat and that's it. They just
people
do that.
Say they're Christian for a vote rather than practicing Christian.
Right, exactly. So next fact, more than 25 million Christians who are registered to vote do not vote in presidential elections. 25 million Christians who are registered to vote. That could have flipped 2020's election like that. You might have even seen California go red. And this last one, more than 65 million Christians do not vote in their local elections. We got some work to do. me included, I didn't vote in a local election until this past year. And so that was the first time that I did that. So we have a lot of work to do, but this is going to be something that's fun. This is going to be something that we get to honestly make practical change with, because there's nothing cooler than when you have done and you have gone and done the work of helping to educate people on their candidates, helping to educate people on what platforms to vote for, all of that stuff. And then on the first Tuesday night in November, you get to see the person that you voted for and you fought for get into office. Like, that is so fun, and that is so cool, and it's a great experience. So we're going to get to do a lot of that.
Yeah, so kind of what I was saying, the specifics. So we'll be doing the Freedom Nights, we'll be doing the outreach like the school boards, and then just really pushing on the elections. One thing that is especially big for those of you that live in the Charlotte area, I don't know if you noticed, but you were not able to vote in this past election. And that's because the Charlotte local elections were moved to April.
I wonder why.
So county commissioner, city commissioner, the mayor, and all of the school board elections were moved to April. It's like April 26th, not even the first Tuesday in April, just
like
a random Tuesday.
Right.
So things like that is what we're really going to be focused on, informing people. I know something that kind of hesitated me to getting involved prior to everything that happened these past couple of years is I just didn't know. And I was like, I don't have time to look this up. I feel uninformed. I feel like I don't know anything and I'm going to make the wrong decision, so I'm just not even going to participate. And so we want to make information just so easy to find, so simple. If you voted in the last election in this past November, we're just getting started, but it'll look like that times 10 this coming November when we have midterm elections, which will be big. Those are huge. And even their turnout's a little bit higher than the local elections, but still even midterm elections are not super involved. And we're voting for a lot of our Congress. That's U.S. and state Congress. So those are the people that are really making changes and really affecting our laws and policies that we need to get out and vote for. So we'll be doing that. We do have, they mentioned earlier if you were in service today, but with Let Us Worship, we're actually partnering with them and with their partner organization, Hold the Line. So they've been holding these Hold the Line intensives and have been doing really focused on getting out into the community. So Turning Point Faith will be partnering with them to really, empower Christians and to raise up, to bring Christians in, honestly, because something that I love about Let Us Worship is even this past one they did in September in D.C., they invited the past 4 sitting presidents. They don't care about party. They want Christians. And we stood out when we went there and stood out in front of the White House and we prayed. He said, regardless of who's in office, we're going to pray for them. And we're going to pray for them to experience Jesus, because that's ultimately, it's not about, only Republicans can be Christian, or we only care about the Republicans. We want everyone to be Christian.
Right.
And so we're not going to just ignore people who believe differently or have different political views than us because of that. We want them to be saved too, because ultimately that's what changes. And something like someone asked me, they asked, for me having been in high school, being, sitting on the far left of the room, sitting there, voting left, someone asked me, ultimately, how do I have conversations with people and what changed for you? What made you switch? And I said, ultimately, it wasn't a conversation. It wasn't someone posting at me at social media or somebody, yelling at me in a text that made me switch. It wasn't somebody, saying, you need to change, you need to be different. It was Jesus. And ultimately, it's Jesus that changes hearts, not anything else.
Good.
And so we want Jesus to be the center of all this. We're not just some political group. We want people's lives changed. We want people fighting for Jesus and those values.
Right.
And we can't do that if we continue on this path. So that's really why we're fighting for it.
Come on, that's awesome. So I've said this once, and I'll probably say it a billion more times, but if it was the other side, and if it was the left that was pro-life, and that was pro-family, and that was pro-Second Amendment, like all these biblical Christian values, and yet they still had all the high taxes and all that kind of stuff, that's where I'm voting. Sorry about it, because biblical values that are going to allow the Lord's hand to be on this country, are so much more important than what taxes I pay. Now, thank the Lord that I get both, right? Like, we get to vote for a party that, is pushing for lower taxes and all that kind of stuff, put more money in your pocket, and biblical values, pro-life, pro-marriage, pro-2A, pro-freedom, all that kind of stuff. So, but like, and that is something that you have to come to terms with. I think everyone in here has to come to terms with that. This is not about corporate tax, because we've seen over the past 10 years, the Republicans have basically been Democrats with lower taxes in a lot of ways. There has been so much just not pushing, not defending biblical values in favor of, we want to let people do what they want. We're not libertarians. Like, we're conservatives. And not there's anything wrong with libertarians, but I think at a certain point, we have to make a decision that government is responsible for shepherding a nation to a point. I think it is the church's role to actually pastor and to shepherd. But if our government, if the only role of the government is to just like do nothing, then the people that are in the government to do something will get to do those things. Does that make sense? Like, so we have to have both. We have to have people that are in government in those offices that are going to actually press forward with biblical values, press forward with stuff that is aligned with Scripture.
Yeah. So practically, the next steps are we'll be having our first Freedom Night most likely in February. We're still landing all the details, and we'll be posting all that on social media. But we'll be doing those monthly Freedom Nights. After that, every month, we'll be posting about all of our events. So our Instagram is probably the best way to get connected. So it's
Instagram,
yes. Turning Point Faith, FH is the thing. And then you can also go to freedomhouse.cc/tpfaith and sign up we'll be sending emails and everything for all those events. And that's really going to be the number one way for us to send out all the events we're going to, all the ways we're going to get connected. And really, Christmas season's coming up. We want this next couple of weeks to really focus on your family, focus on those holiday times. And then 2022, we're hitting
the ground running.
Guns blazing. We'll be having all the events.
Right.
So we really wanted to just meet together now to get everybody ready, to get everybody, prayed up, and just really use these next couple of weeks to really just take the time to spend with your family, rest, pray. And then 2022, that January 1st, be ready, because we're coming for our city.
We're coming. So something I just want to mention real quick. So Jordan mentioned earlier the Charlotte elections got moved to April, right? So bad, because definitely some trickery going on there. The reason was like what?
Census and redistricting things weren't going to be back in time.
Yeah, Charlotte doesn't, redistricting has nothing to do with the city of Charlotte. So sketchy stuff going on there. But it's also a great opportunity, because now everyone in this room that lives in Charlotte knows that election is coming up. And so what you can do is you can tell your friends, you can tell your family, you can get registered to vote right now. So if there is one practical step, if there was one thing for you to do, when you leave this room, your next step is, if you have not registered to vote, do it. It is so easy. It is literally easier than ordering groceries on Instacart. Yeah. It's just so easy. I literally had someone, I first got registered to vote when I was going to UNC Charlotte, and I was walking to a noon class, and someone was like, "Hey, you want to register to vote?" I was like, "Yeah, why not? Sure." And it took me literally 30 seconds. And so you can do it online. There's lots of things. We're going to have resources on Turning Point Faith, Turning Point FH, Instagram, so that you can do that. Another next step, like Jordan said, follow us on Instagram. That's where a lot of our stuff is going to live. We're also going to be sending out stuff in emails. So if you don't do Instagram, you can still catch us in an email. freedomhouse.cc/tpfaith is where that will be found. Yep. And so with that said, I would love to open the floor up to just a couple questions. If anyone has anything, I don't think, you want to pass your mic around?
Sure.
Cool. So, does anyone have any questions? Tony, could you help?
Appreciate it. All right. It's great to see folks mobilizing and taking back the city and all, but we can't win if we can't beat the cheat, right?
Sure.
So what can we do to do two things, right? Force the issue around ballot harvesting, especially in the nursing homes, because that's where it's going. You have all the poll watchers you want,
For sure.
but they're making up ballots there. And another thing is how do we get Mecklenburg County to report first? They have a hard time cheating if they have to hit their number before the outlying counties.
Yeah, so one we recently spoke to that I think, one thing to start, I think I love about Freedom House is we're not trying to do and be everything. So we always work to partner with organizations that have the tools and resources to really focus in on specific things like that. So I know recently, I would have to look up the information, but there's a organization that recently started that is partnered with Friends with Madison Cawthorn. And I'll if you come see me afterwards, I can get you the name for it. But they are they're building algorithms and full reporting systems to locate those things, like locate basically what they do. He explained it way better than I can, but I'll try to summarize. Basically, what they do is, so the way North Carolina Board of Elections works is they have a whole system, a whole computer system with everything, and it refreshes every Saturday at like 3 a.m., which is sketchy in itself. But when it refreshes, it deletes all prior records. So the second it refreshes, you can't find anything prior to that new record. So what this organization is doing is they have an algorithm and a system built up that takes a snapshot of each record every Saturday so that they can line each one up towards each other. And what's even crazier is the weeks like of elections, and I think it's like a 1 to 2 week period after elections where this is happening daily. And they get all of those snapshots, they compare them side by side. And what they do is they basically said the 7 to 9 day period after elections is pretty much the only period you can ever contest an election, because once that's signed, it's done. And so what they do in that 7 to 9 day period is they basically all gather together, they pull it all together, and if any county or any city or any area in North Carolina has any questions, or they feel like, hey, this doesn't seem to be adding up, if there's anything that they feel like is get flagged, they can go to this organization and they will basically pull all the records together, and they will pull an entire case together to contest the election to that local area. And so
So with that said, so each then case of, so they're able to keep like full records of each individual case of alleged fraud. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word, like alleged fraud. So, and I say alleged just because we all know, we're all aware. But you kind of legally you kind of have to, because innocent until proven guilty. My butt, whatever. Anyways, so what that's good with is then each count of fraud, or each vote that looks like it should be contested, or maybe it's not right, is one case, one charge for election fraud. So they get to take even just one vote, they can take it to court and challenge that vote. Times that by however many there are. There's a lot of great data. If you look up a guy named Seth Keschel, he has a lot of great information on all the different county elections. I say county elections, but like just elections in general, but on a county basis. Because as you know, Board of Elections are county-wide, so you don't have a Huntersville Board of Elections. You have, well, technically you can, but elections are run by the county. Know that. So each county has a specific amount of votes, right? And if it's sketchy, Seth Keschel's organization also does a great job of being able to inform and help with that kind of stuff. So I would say what we're going to do on that is we're going to get so many people out to vote that honestly it's not going to matter. Because the reality is, and I know that there was some sketchy stuff that went on in the 2020 election. I know that they tried. I don't know if you saw any of the stuff that they tried to pull against Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. But there is a lot of sketchy stuff, and the left has gotten very good at trying to steal elections and trying to influence elections in that way. But it's not an issue if we all get out and vote, because, I mean, call me a little bit of an optimist, but you can only fraud so many votes. Right. Like, before it becomes weird. Because right now it's working because these elections, they're not far enough. They're just too close. And so if you add in 10,000 votes here in a state there, whatever, then it's like, oh yeah, 10,000 more people just came out. But I hope that answers your question. Awesome. Anyone else? Tony, you got it. Beat the cheat. I like that. That was good.
I work elections for the Mecklenburg County Board of Elections. According to the information I had, the rescheduled municipal election and primary is March the 8th.
March 8th.
Okay, you said April.
Did it?
Well, so that's the primaries for the November elections. Yeah, so March 8th is the primary elections for the November midterm, from my understanding. And then the city of Charlotte, which is separate from Mecklenburg County, those local elections are April 26th.
Well, the schedule I'm looking at says second primary, if necessary, if no federal office is involved, is April 26th.
Okay.
So we'll have all of that information, elections, schedules, and everything. All of it will be on our Instagram, and it will also be on freedomhouse.cc/tpfaith. So even if we say something here, the website's going to be right, for sure. So, anyone else?
Hey guys, my name's Jeremy. I attend Freedom House South End. Part
Welcome.
of the younger group down there at South End. I feel like there's a lot of motivated individuals down there, just as young as myself, 26 and younger, maybe a little bit older, really activating that part. First of all, I just want to say thank you for what you guys are doing here and activating Christ back in this nation. I think it's so much needed, and I am so happy to be here and be a part of that. It's part of how this nation got founded, or else we'd still be British. So it was not for the
This
church
is a dude
leaders.
you need to get to know.
So thank you for that. But I love to see that activation. It's two things, but it's very quick. First, how is TP Faith wanting to scale this to a point where this room turns into a full room, to multiple churches, to affiliated churches, to just absolutely scale that out? And then the second question, if you want to go ahead and tackle that first, we can go ahead and get to the second question.
For sure. Yeah, so I'll start, and then you can finish. So TP Faith is an organization that is larger than just Freedom House. Thank you. So Turning Point Faith is nationwide. So there are chapters all across the nation. I think we're the largest one, though. I might be misquoting that, but judging by the size of this room, Turning Point Faith is fairly new. So it is something that they launched at the beginning of this year in August. Was launched, and so we wanted as Freedom House to get right immediately involved. So know that if you put all the people that were involved in Turning Point Faith across the nation into one room, we wouldn't fit in this room. But what I hear you asking in that is, how do we get more people involved here at Freedom House? Which I think that is what's super important, is just invite people. Just invite people along for the journey. People, especially young people who are interested in politics, one, they probably don't know where to start. And so this is a great first step. So you just say, hey, I'm going to this thing. It's a freedom night that's going to be taking place here at Central Campus in 2022. Come hang out at that. Or, hey, I'm going to go help out with some primary election stuff. Or I'm going to go do some canvassing or whatever. Bring them along for the journey. Also, you can always say, follow us on Instagram at TurningPointFH. Send them to the website. Like, those are some practical things. But really, people are looking to be along for the journey. Like, that's what I found. Is politics for me is more than just something that I can, add to my list of things to do. I'll be honest. Like, I'm not going to say better things to do, but there are sometimes things that I would prefer to do. I really love golf. And when I'm doing politics stuff, I can't play golf. But it's so important, and people realize that it is important. And so they want to be a part of it. So if you invite them to be a part of it, then they will. They will join in a heartbeat, especially if you give them something practical as, come to this thing. This is how you've been wanting to get involved in politics. This is how you do it. You come to this thing. You do this thing.
Yeah, and then something else we're kind of being really intentional about in this season as a couple and as the leaders of this is we're really working with, so we actually have a field representative that we work with that is on staff at Turning Point USA and oversees Turning Point Faith chapters for North and South Carolina. And so we're partnering directly with him. He's traveling between the two states every week, meeting churches, going to different churches and building those relationships. And we're all, he's connecting with, he's letting us know, oh, hey, there's this church in like Rock Hill, South Carolina that might want to partner with you guys, or this church. And so we're really going to be building those relationships. And like I said, we started in August, and we're one of, honestly, probably the flagship. I think we're one of maybe 10 or 15 chapters in the country right now that our goal is, and if you know Turning Point USA, they started off with 10 to 15, and now they have over 1,000 chapters across the country in middle and high school and college. And so we're just kind of one of those, one of the flagship ones to really just, almost like guinea pigs, we're just, testing it out, and we're really just focusing this season on building relationships, going to different events, hosting different events, we're fortunate to have some people in the church that are involved politically, and so helping us build those connections, get speakers, get funding, and just really build those relationships to network and just spread across the state.
One more thing that I think is super important. So I'm not a huge fan of podcasts myself because I would rather listen to like actual music, but I force myself to listen to podcasts because they are great information. So the Charlie Kirk Show is a great one, and I say that not as a Turning Point faith person, but as like someone who just listens to things. Charlie Kirk's podcast is really great. Lots of awesome information. There's also a couple other people on Instagram. Dan Bongino is a great person. He connects, in my opinion, connects really well with younger people. So if you're wanting someone to point people to, Dan Bongino is great. He spoke at Turning Point Student Action Summit over the summer in Tampa, and I heard one of his messages, and it pulled me in. So Dan Bongino, Charlie Kirk, I think those are some great people. So what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, second part of my question, it kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier with fraud, and I think the biggest thing is fraud is okay here or there as long as it doesn't matter. We have the greatest amount of turnouts, but that's not always a given. Right. And I think the way that you stop fraud is you prosecute fraud. And I think you're starting to see that down in Florida. Governor DeSantis is a rock star, and he's just, any fraud whatsoever, whether it be 1 vote or 1 million votes, it's unacceptable. And I think if you disincentivize people to doing that, you criminalize it, you put people behind bars, you disincentivize it, you actually have the results that are reflective of what the real vote is. But what I'm saying is it's kind of twofold, because if you look at the 2020 election, and what you mentioned earlier, obviously I agree, but on the conservative side, people stand silent. They just stood idly by. They didn't do a thing about it, and it was across the board, not only in Washington but locally. And there was just so much mobilization, but there was no actual plan or guided. They want to audit this and they want to do this, and nothing actually happened.
Right.
And I think that's a result of having what you would call a rhino or a Republican in name only.
Right.
And people who are either elected because they want to get the fame or the power, or start to scale up to eventually become more and more famous, or people who just want it running for the sake of running. I think we have to have people in office that are reflective of what the Bible says, and for this country. How do we ensure that we're having people who are not politically motivated, but actually are motivated by this country, faith, family, freedom, to be in that realm, and also to go back to the cheating and the fraud part?
For sure. Yeah. So one thing I just want to point out, and I'll make this quick because you have a great answer to this, I know, is to fraud you, to commit voter fraud is illegal. Like, it is illegal in all states. It is a felony to fraudulent a vote. However, something you said that I think is very key is you can't go to jail for something that you don't prosecute. And so how you prosecute that stuff is you get people into office that are going to seek after those things. How do you do that if there's election fraud? I wish I had a great answer to that, but honestly, we just have to be super vigilant and be aware that these things are going to happen, and we have to just be loud. Like, not be loud and annoying, but honestly, we got to be annoying. But just be loud and talk about those things. Talk about, hey, this was not okay. I think we should audit this. Honestly, I think that all elections should be audited, because if you win properly, then you have nothing to hide. I think even when Republicans win, when conservatives win election in office, I think that we should audit those elections. So, however, that is all like just fantasy until we get people voted into office that are actually going to do that. I don't think it's too late. I think that the people that are overseeing those, I think the people that are on those election committees and that are running those city councils and that are running those county commissioners' offices that have the power to do those kind of things, and even down to your your attorney generals for the state and your city attorneys and all that kind of stuff, the people that we vote into power, those people can be changed by us voting for people. Now, how we get those people into office, we learn people's platforms and we meet people. I think a lot of local officials are a lot more open to meeting with people than we give them credit for. Not all of them, but some of them. And I think that it is something that we can do. I guarantee you that you have walked by someone who ran for office at the grocery store at like Harris Teeter or whatever. So just being more intentional in meeting those people. I hope that answers your question. Wait, no, you were going to say something. I answered. Okay, cool, awesome, go me. Awesome. Are there any other? Yeah, Tony, I think we got one over here.
So my name is Dare Luck. Not quite as good a speaker as other people, so I might stumble through this. But I've been convicted that, or my eyes have been opened, that if our pastors in our country, which is our God-based country, had not buried their head in the sand or had been more aware of what was going on and more involved in politics, our country would not be in this situation right now. So therefore, it leads me to the question, how can Freedom House, Turning Point, USA, how can they get pastors together to educate them and give them the boldness that Pastor Penny and Pastor Troy have? Because I think they want that, but they don't have the education to confidently stand up in front of their congregations to share what's really going on, what's real truth. Everybody wants truth, but if you don't feel confident in sharing truth, then you say nothing. Is there anything y'all can do going forward to plan a meet and greet with area pastors just to get to know them? And then after you have that relationship, and by the way, we've got Charlie Kirk coming or Kansas Owens coming. We would love for you to come be a part of that and just see what they have to say. And
Yeah, so this is something actually that our pastors have. This isn't always something that, there's a lot of stuff our pastors and our team does that's very behind the scenes that we don't always, advertise. But especially Pastor Troy, both of our pastors really this past year have been traveling 2 to 3 times a month, going to other churches. They've been asked to come and they've been invited to come and speak into churches, speaking to their teams. Pastor Troy's even gone, and preached like 7 times on one weekend at smaller churches just across the country to really help build those relationships and really kind of, like you said, help empower them to speak up and to learn how to speak up and to learn basically from what we're doing right now, because we're definitely, like Pastor Troy said this from his messages before, but we're really right now going to be one of the tip of the spears to this in this country as a church, and we're really one of the few churches that are heading this up and heading this fight. And so that's something they're doing monthly, is they're going out and reaching out. And then locally, we're really working with some of the events, like I said earlier, that we're going to. A lot of them are actually at other churches and different church groups, and we're doing different things around and meeting with other people and really getting in, different Facebook groups or different things here and there, meeting people from other churches in the area. Because we've heard from a lot already from our state representative for Turning Point Faith that he's going to churches, he's building those relationships, and then he's kind of just connecting the dots. So he's saying, hey, there's this Baptist church in South Carolina that has only like 300 people, so they don't have the resources to do all this. Can they work with you guys? And we're doing those things, so we'll be informing them about the events. We'll be partnering. We did something like this similar with Let Us Worship. Again, this isn't something that's always like super out there and advertised, but we actually partnered with 6 different churches to put on Let Us Worship in June last year, and we'll be partnering with about the same this coming year of churches that, maybe they didn't have the manpower to do some of the admin that we took on or some of the organization that we took on, but they brought people, they brought as much finances as they could, they brought faith, they brought prayer, they brought people to the event, and they announced it from their event, their pulpits as well, to bring everybody together. So that's something, especially with Let Us Worship, that we're really doing to bring people across denomination, across churches, to do that together. So
and something I just want to add to that. So I wish every church would speak up and do something about this. At least all the ones that, obviously you have your woke churches that are very going to be in opposition to this kind of stuff that we're doing. But then you also have your churches that are in the middle of the road that are just, maybe they're scared of losing funding or something like that. And honestly, as much as it breaks my heart to say, like that is their problem. Like, we can do as much as we can to reach out and to be a friend to these churches and to be like a help in this kind of fight. But at the end of the day, if a church decides to put the bottom line in they might lose tithe, or they might lose funding or anything like that over speaking truth, then ultimately that's between them and the Lord. And I don't want to be in the middle of that conversation personally, but I think that's the reality of the situation. Is churches globally have to make a decision. Am I going to? Do I care, and do I care so much? Because that's the reality. They say, oh, we don't want people to leave. No, honestly, for most people, the reality is going to be that they don't want their donations affected. And you have to trust God with that. And so I'm glad that our pastors have done that. And they, even when, I remember hearing Pastor Troy talk about it and Pastor Olin talk about, even when we first decided that, hey, we're going to be a little more politically involved and we're going to engage a little more in the community, this might affect our finances, so let's put some money aside. And so they did. Now, here we are, a year and a half later, and Pastor Troy will even say, this is one of the best years we've had so far, ever, and which is awesome. So God is faithful, and I think that other pastors and other churches, they have to understand that. I hope that answers your question. We'll do one more.
Look, my heels are louder than the microphone.
You got it, Tony.
Give it up for Tony.
Hello. I just want to piggyback off of the young man's second question. We do know that our local elections are the elections that impact our everyday lives. And, me and my family, we're fairly new to the state of North Carolina. And, but once we moved here, I pretty much got up and running. And I was quickly involved. And one of the things that I quickly learned is that a lot of the people that so-called say that they align with our values, with Christian values, and they say that they're Christian, they were not. They were wolves in sheep's clothing, or rhinos, or what have you. So I guess we need to do better in vetting. So what would be your recommendations, or what would be some of your questions that we can ask these people to really hold their feet to the fire, to do what we can possibly do to vet these women and men who are running, to see that if their true core values line up with what they say? Because I personally encountered and canvassed and rallied and was there with one particular young woman that was running for local elections, and come to find out that she was a fraud. She did not align with the values that not only myself, but other people that, canvassed for her. So what would be some of your questions that you could share with us, that we could present to them to kind of really hold their feet to the fire, and just to see if they really are truly who they say they are?
For sure. That is an awesome question. I'll start, and then you can wrap it up. So I think the first thing that you have to be able to ask, or be willing to ask, is, are you pro-life? Are you pro-marriage, pro-family? And are you pro-religious liberty? Are you going to, do you believe that the church should be an organization that can act on its own, make its own decisions without the involvement of the government? So those are the kind of three things. And you can throw in Second Amendment and all those kind of other, are you pro low taxes? You can throw those things as well. So I think you ask that question, but then anyone would probably say, oh yeah, sure, I love those things. So you ask them two follow-up questions. You say, okay, what does that mean to you? So what does it mean to you to be pro-marriage? Let them answer that. Don't intervene. Let them, if they're going to stumble on their own words, let them, and that will be a show of their character. And then ask them also, okay, why? Because if they don't have a legitimate reason to believe what they believe, because I believe in pro-life, because I believe that God created human life and that it is precious to him from the point of conception all the way back into the grave. I can explain that to you I may try to be eloquent with it, or I may try to just say it more messy, but I can explain it to you with pretty good, like, I don't need to prepare that response. And so someone who is the same should be able to do that as well. Someone who has to rehearse their responses or whatever will quickly reveal themselves to be fake when you ask them why. So I think that is the best way to do that. You ask those questions. And like I said, pro-family, pro-life, and pro-church. Those are some of the biggest things that we have to push for.
And something that I've really gleaned from is, so Pastor Troy and Pastor Penny have gotten some flack because it's like, oh, we'll bring up this politician or they'll have this person. And I want to preface with them specifically, they don't give anybody a platform until they've personally sat down with them. And the number one, Pastor Troy shared this the other day to me, but he said the number one thing they lean on is the Holy Spirit. They ask them their beliefs on the Holy Spirit. They rely on the Holy Spirit to guide them in the conversation. And a lot of times they'll ask them to share their faith with them. So Pastor Troy will sit down like with a Madison or Bo Hines and say, explain your faith to me. Explain how Jesus has personally impacted your life. Explain how your faith and your Christianity has affected who you are. Because, and basically he said, when you get to questions like that, typically you avoid the yes or no questions because anybody can say yes. You get to the questions where they're having to share their heart and their character. He said, you can't fake that. And you get to a point like with them where you build up that discernment to know when someone's faking it or not. Because if you ask someone to explain how Jesus Christ has changed their life, you can't fake that. You would have to see the overflow of Jesus and the Holy Spirit in their lives to even consider even voting for them or canvassing for them or promoting them. Like, you have to see that before anything else. Because you can say, like, kind of like you said, you can say you're pro-life or pro-liberty or anything all day long, but you can't fake your faith. And so.
Awesome. Well, if there are any more questions, you feel free to send them to our Turning Point Faith Instagram, Turning Point FH. Send it to their Turning Point Faith FH. Look at me, I don't even know our own username. Turning Point Faith FH is on Instagram, and then freedomhouse.cc/tpfaith. Contact us. If you have any other questions, feel free to send them to there. Like I said, next steps, follow us on Instagram. Get registered to vote. Get registered to vote. Say it with me. Get registered to vote. Awesome. Now you said it, now you have to do it. So I encourage you to do that. Also, spend some time just like reading. Spend some time researching. Something that is an interesting fact is the reason why most churches are so adverse to get involved in politics is because of this thing called the Johnson Amendment in the U.S. tax code. And it says that the 501c3 is what sets up churches as tax exempt in the U.S. tax code. And the Johnson Amendment was something that was added in 1954 that basically, it literally added on a sentence that was like, and they also can't endorse political candidates and do this kind of stuff, etc. So I'm not going to speak on behalf of the pastors or anything like that onto what we're going to do with like as far as endorsing candidates. But I am a little more at ease to know that no organization has ever had their 501c3 revoked. Like, that has never happened in the history of the U.S. except for one time, and it was given back to the organization because they realized that what they were doing, which I'm pretty sure was like actually endorsing candidates, it wasn't enough of the whole sum of the organization to justify taking away their tax exempt status. So with that said, again, I'm not going to speak on behalf of our pastors. I know that they will pray for people. They will invite people up to the platform to pray over them and have our congregation surround them. And I echo what Jordan said, is we're not going to do that unless we trust those people. But I rest a little easier knowing I can get involved in politics and at church, and I'm not going to cost anyone taxes. So, but if I'm honest, we all pay taxes. So it's not a huge deal. So with that said, that's your next steps. Thank you guys so much for coming out. This was awesome. Come on, give yourselves a hand. Sweet. Well, That's everything that we have for you guys. We'll hang around for a little bit. If anyone has any other questions or anything like that, I want to introduce one more person really fast. Sean Batson, stand up real quick. Sean was doing the brutal work of facilities at South End and probably got stuck in some traffic on the way up here. But Sean is our treasurer for TP Faith. So he's going to be handling all the monies and getting all those big donations from all those super PACs and all that kind of stuff. So, so this is Sean. Introduce yourself. Yeah, you want to introduce yourself? Come on. Get up for Sean.
Hey everybody, yep, Sean Batson here. I'm on staff here at the church. I do facilities at South End, like David said. I'm just really looking forward to getting involved because I've always loved politics, but I've also always loved Jesus first. And I was always kind of like, I don't really want to like push my political agenda on people, but this is really the time that we need to stand up. You know, I'm somebody that doesn't like to be up here on platform doing this kind of stuff, but if I can do it, you all can do it. So get out. Do the best that you can, and we're so thankful that you're a part of this. So
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. I should have had you say that at the beginning because we could have all gone home an hour ago. That was great. Awesome. Well, like I said, have a great rest of your Sunday. We're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. Don't miss church next Sunday, and we will send out more information soon to come.
Yep.
So, like I said, we'll be here if you want to ask any questions or anything like that, or just hang out.
Awesome.
But have a great rest of your Sunday.
And
Y'all
grab
just
a
ma-
yard sign and invite cards on your
Oh,
way
yeah,
out.
Christmas
Invite people
Eve
to
is-
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve is coming up, so grab a yard sign and invite cards.